Hello, it's Conte here. Today I'm presenting to you an introduction to project management. 5 key questions we are trying to answer today. The first question is, what is project management? The second question is, what are the key principles of project management? Number 3, what are the key roles in project management? Question 4, what are the main project management techniques? And finally, question 5, what does the project management and decision-making process involve? Now to the first question. What is project management? We'll begin by looking at the two words making up the term project management. The first word, project, refers to connected, unique, complex activities, and these activities have a common goal. So, number one, the activities must be unique. Number two, they tend to be complex. Number three, maybe most importantly, these activities must have a common goal. So activity 1 to say activity 2, 3, 4, 5, all these combined together in a series must aim at a common goal. The end goal must be the same. So activity 1 is working towards the end goal. Activity 2 is working towards the end goal. There is a common goal. And then the last characteristic of a project is it has a definite beginning and definite ending. So you know where you are going to start and you also know where you are going to end. And in between, you have your series of connected, unique, complex activities towards a common goal with a definite beginning and definite ending. And then what does management mean? There are 4 primary functions of management. The first function is planning. The second function is organizing. The third function is control. And the fourth function is leadership. So you are going to talk about planning. There must be a plan, right? So the key role of management is planning. What is the plan? What are you following? What's the blueprint, right? And when there is a plan, then you need to organize, right? So that you make sure every aspect of the plan is organized in such a way as to meet their individual expectations. Each of the aspects of the plan must have some expectations on it, must have some activities that are being done. And then we have the function of control, right? What rules are you going to be following? What policies are you going to be following? What procedures are there so that everyone is operating within a set of rules, within set procedures, so there is order in how it is being carried out. And the final function of management is leadership. There must be someone leading. There must be someone with a figurehead. There must be someone who make final decisions. You have the initial decision with the overall overview of the project. Therefore, what does project management mean? A condensation or a bringing together of the two words project and management. Remember, we said project has certain characteristics and management has certain characteristics. So you bring together the characteristics of a project and characteristics of management so that you come up with what you can say, yes, this is a summative, this is an accurate description of project management. Now, my take from the two descriptions we have, the description of project and the description of management, my take is that therefore, project management can be defined as the planning, the organizing, controlling, and leadership of connected activities, which you said can be complex, which have a common end goal and with a definite beginning and a definite ending. Okay, let's go over again. Project management can be defined as the planning, organizing, controlling, and leadership of connected activities which have a common goal and with a definite beginning and definite ending. Of course, I have to highlight the fact that there is no single definition of any term that you'll find in academic literature. And the same goes for the term project management. You have different authors with different definitions of project management. But from the two basic characterizations of the two terms, the term project and the term management, I've come up with a condensed definition of project management. Number two, what are the key principles of project management? And please note, I've included the word key because there are many principles you're going to find in your readings. Different authors have different principles. But in this particular instance, we're just going to look at the main ones, and different literature publications may have a different take, but here are the main ones. Let's begin by a definition of principle, right? A principle is defined by the Cambridge Dictionary in 2017 as, quote, a basic idea or rule that explains or controls how something happens or works. And when we are looking at the principles, key principles of project management, we are interested in what are the basic ideas of project management? What are the basic rules which explain or control how project management is conducted, how it is done? So, from this definition, therefore, what can we say about principles of project management? Again, I've tried to decipher, I've tried to condense or deduce from the dictionary definition. So we have some kind of operational definition of principles of project management. And my take is, you may have your own take. You may have a go and try and define it using where we came from the dictionary meaning, so that we have a contextualized meaning. Sorry. So my take here is principles of project management are the basic or essential ideas or rules which influence how projects work or how projects are run in general. So you have the general ideas guiding how projects are going to be run, the general ideas which are driving the manner in which projects are conducted. Now, what are the main assumptions here? This is taken from Weidman 2005 in the author's publication on the IBM Corporation website. Right. Main assumptions are, in a project, there are going to be same or common project goals. So everyone is working to common project goals. You may have multiple teams, but eventually everyone is focusing, laser focus on the goals. What are the common goals? What do we want to achieve from this? What do we want at the end? Yes, we are planning. Yes, we are initiating. Yes, we are controlling and managing. But what exactly do we want out of this at the end of the project? When the project reaches the end of its life cycle, what is it that we want? Everyone must be working to the same or the common project goals. The second assumption is everyone must be clear, or everyone is clear who the customer is. Yes, we are doing all this as part of our project. Yes, we're engaging in this project. We are partaking in this particular project. Who is our customer? If you ask any member of the team within the project, they must be able to tell you who the customer is. Because eventually you want to meet the need of the customer when you've ended, when you've finished, when you've completed the project. The question you have to ask yourself at the end of a project is, have the needs of the customer been met? Assumption number 3 is that there are appropriate levels of skill or experience among the members of the team or the various teams engaged in a particular project. There's no point in embarking on a project when you know that the people who are doing the project do not have sufficient skills, do not have the appropriate skills required to see the project through. Because the success of the project depends on the skills level, depends on the expertise, depends on the experience of, number one, the individuals making up the teams or team within a project. Number two, of the teams themselves collectively. Do they have experience of working together to a common goal in a similar circumstance? And do they have the skills? Do they have the experience? Number four, the assumption in number four is everyone is clear what the project budget is. Otherwise, you may have certain teams overspending. So everyone must know what the budget level is so that you operate within budget. If you do not operate, if you overspend, that may lead the project to failing. And we do not want that to happen. So the assumption is everyone is clear what the budget level is overall for the whole project, and then what the budget level is for individual tasks within the process of the project. So each task may have allocated funds, allocated resources, and each team that is working on each particular task as part of the larger project, the global project, must adhere, work to the set budget. Assumption number 5. Everyone must be clear what the project time frame is. So whatever individuals, the series of tasks, connected activities, these complex activities we talked about when we were defining a project, each of them must work to the time frame. Because if you go over time, that will lead to delays, and that may lead also to an increase in costs. So you must make sure that everyone is clear on the project time frame, and everyone working within different stages, phases, different activities must work in such a way that in the end the project will meet its deadline. It's very important that that happens. Now let's look at the principles of project management. There are 7 key principles according to Weidman, and these are drawn from Bing 1995. Weidman distills them in his publication of 2005. Principle number 1 is the success principle. The second principle is the commitment principle. The third principle is called the tetrad trade-off principle. And principle number 4, the strategy principle. Principle number 5, the management principle. The 6th principle is the single point responsibility principle. And last but not least, the cultural environment principle. Now we'll look at each of these in a bit more depth in the next slide. The success principle. Now, what we have here in front of us is success criteria must be identified at the beginning. Do not figure out what your success criteria are going to be when you're midway, okay, or when you end, and then, oh, by the way, how can we measure success when you're at the end of the project? Now that is poor practice. At the onset, you must be clear what are going to be our indicators of success. We will have succeeded if we have done A. We will have succeeded if we have done B. We will have succeeded if we've done X. What are your success criteria? This must be done at the beginning. So the first thing that's important within the success principle. And the second point is these criteria, i.e., the success criteria, will influence decisions in and during the project process. Okay? The decisions you will make during the project process are not just decisions for the sake of decisions. You are saying, okay, right, this is what is happening. Now I need to make a decision, and this decision must enable me to be successful at the end. Or this decision must enable the team to be successful at the end. The project must succeed. But for you to know you've succeeded, you must have specific criteria, definitive criteria on which you will measure the success. And every decision that's going to be made must take into account the success criteria. And then upon completion of the project, the criteria help with the evaluation. Okay? When you have undertaken a project, you must at the end evaluate to what extent has the project been successful? What could have been done better? Which goals did we not meet? Now, for you to be able to do that at the end of the project, you must have had success criteria at the beginning, which you will have tried to work to at every stage. In every activity, you're working towards those success criteria. And this is why we have the success principle. It's principle number one. It's very important when you are undertaking a project to have success criteria. Number two, the commitment principle. Projects fail sometimes because there is a lack of or insufficient or inadequate commitment from either members or teams. So the commitment principle is saying here, both the project sponsor, that is the person who is funding, who is providing the resources, the person who has initiated, who owns the project, right? But the project sponsor and the project delivery team, the delivery team are the people, the teams, or the total of individuals making up the team that is working on the project on the ground. Now, both the sponsor and the project delivery team must demonstrate equal commitment. You must both, the team and the sponsor, have equal commitment to not only parts of the project, but the whole project from the first to the last activity. There must be commitment. Without commitment, projects may drag on, project may be diverted, project may lose sight of the goal. But with commitment, everyone will work and sing to the same hymn sheet. So it's important to have commitment. The team must also be sufficiently aware of the challenges and risks. Not only the team, but also the sponsor. There must be that awareness. Because without that awareness, it's going to be difficult to know what the challenges are going to be. And if you do not know what the challenges are going to be, if you do not know what the risks are going to be, it's difficult to plan for them. Because there's a need to plan for challenges, potential challenges to your project, What is likely to delay this project? What is likely to derail this project? What are the risks? What can make this project fail? You must have an awareness of the risks, the challenges. Then you must be willing to undertake the project, right? The sponsor and the project delivery team, there must be that willingness to undertake the project. And then, yes, we've talked about equal commitment, but linked to that equal commitment to the whole project, linked to also what we've talked about as well, the challenges, an awareness of the challenges and risks, is that capacity, the existence of a sharing of risks. These risks must be shared. Do not make one team share, bear the risks on their shoulder. Do not make one party within the project bear the risks. The project delivery team must not say, oh, the sponsor, because they own the project, they must bear all the risks by themselves. The sponsor must not say, oh, because I'm sponsoring the project, it's them, the project delivery team, who must bear the risks. That's not how it works. The sharing of risks must be across the sponsor and the project delivery team. That's how it must work. Principle number 3, the tetrad trade-off principle. Okay? Now, here we're talking about product scope, quality grade, time to produce, and total cost at completion. These must all be attainable. Okay? It must be achievable. There's no point of having a product scope which you cannot cope with, right? The extent of the product, what the product entails. If it's undoable within the time frame, within the budget, and with these skill levels within your teams or the experience levels, then there's no point in doing it. The quality grade. If you set a quality grade that is so high that your team, with its existing experience and skills, cannot attain, then obviously, even before you start, you know the project is going to fail, right? So the quality grade must also be attainable. Time to produce. Can it be produced within the time frame which has been set at the beginning? If you have projected, if you've budgeted for 12 weeks within which to complete a project, and then what you are doing actually requires 7 years, then it's undoable, it's unattainable within a 12-week period. And you know that at the end, by week 12, by the end of week 12, the project will still be incomplete. So the time frame, time to produce whatever the project seeks to produce, must be attainable. It must be realistic. And then you're talking about the total cost at completion, how much it's going to cost. If you have a budget of, say, 200,000, and the total cost at completion is going to be 5 million, obviously it's going to fail. Make sure when you are setting off, when you're beginning, when you're initiating a project, make sure it is attainable, right? The product scope is attainable, the quality grade is attainable, the time to produce the particular product your project is aiming to produce is attainable, and the total cost at completion must be attainable. Everything in this particular list, product scope, quality grade, time to produce, and total cost at completion, all these aspects must be attainable without exception. Not most, not some, but all of these must be attainable. And then we have another thing there, compatibility. The quality grade must be compatible with the time to produce. For example, to produce something at a certain quality will say takes 5 weeks and your time that you have set is 3 weeks, then there's incompatibility there. There must be compatibility. There must be consistency between what you are hoping to achieve, the quality to which you're going to achieve it, in the time it will take, the time that has been set aside to produce that particular product, of the standard that you have set. By standard, I'm referring to quality. Total cost at completion must be compatible as well. If you say, right, I want it to be grade A, quality level, and grade A goes for £9 million, but you have in your budget 3 million. It's not working. It's not going to work because a particular grade goes with a particular cost, right? An increase in grade. For every unit increase in grade, there will be an equivalent unit increase in the money, in the total cost at completion. So you need to make sure there is that compatibility. The cost and the quality expected are going hand in hand. There is that harmony between cost and quality, between scope and grade, between time to produce and the quality. The type and quality of product must be able to be produced within the set time frame, within the set cost. That is very important. Let's move on to principle number 4. Now, this principle is based on START, which is product initiation. I think you already know I'm talking about the product or the project life cycle, right? It's based on the START, plan, do, finish. Now, START, in some books you'll find it's called initiation. And then you have plan, and do, sometimes it's called execution, and finish, sometimes it's called closing. That is what this strategy principle is based on. What is the strategy for initiation? What is the strategy for planning? What is the strategy for execution? What is the strategy for finishing? What is the strategy for the whole sequence from start to finish, the evaluation? Each of these phases must have its own deliverables. When we say deliverables, we're talking about what is it that you aim to have done, what is it that you aim to have produced, right? Decide what will be done when. Okay, so you have the what and the when. These must be clear. These must be specific. The plan always comes before doing. The plan always comes before the doing. That's one of the main assumptions or the main assertions there under the strategy principle. You do not begin something before you've planned for it, otherwise it's going to be haphazard. You do not execute. What are you executing from? That's a laissez-faire approach. You need a plan first, and then that plan will guide how you are going to execute what you are going to be doing. And last but not least, of course, this seems obvious. The project must be finished. What's the point of starting a project which you do not finish? I know you may have examples of projects that have been started but never been finished. Do not start a project that you cannot finish. So the project must be finished, and there must be a strategy in place that ensures that the project is finished. Management principle. That's principle number 5. How will it be done? When? And by who? Remember when you talked about the key functions of management, okay? We talked about planning, organizing, control, leadership. This is where it is coming in. It's addressing the how, the when, and the who. And within the management principles, we're also talking about policies and procedures to regulate and control conduct. By conduct, we're talking about behavior, the actions of team members, of the leaders, of the managers, of the individuals making the teams. Without policies, you won't know where one role begins and where it ends, because people must be clear what are their key accountabilities, what are their key responsibilities, what are their key roles, so that you don't have people doing the same thing, or you do not have other activities not being done by anyone. And they must be clear when these must be done, when these must be carried out as well. It is important. And within the management principle, we're also talking about clear processes of maintaining quality. Remember, quality is important. Quality, quality, quality. It is important. Everyone must be clear what quality level is expected. And then managing changes during the project life cycle. Yes, you have a plan, but it doesn't mean that change will not be necessary. There are times when you must make some modifications, because when you plan, sometimes you may not oversee, or you may not have oversight, or you may not predict everything, every little thing that is going to happen. So whenever some changes happen, whenever there's a change in any aspect of the project, these changes need to be managed during the project life cycle, and all this is coming under the management principle. Now we move on to principle number 6, the single point responsibility principle. Okay? Again, this is all about making things clear, making sure everyone knows where they are, who they are within the context of the project. Single channel of communication between the project sponsor and the project team for all decisions. There must be that single channel of communication between the project sponsor and project team for all decisions. Now, this helps, number one, save time. Number two, it also helps as far as consistency in messaging is concerned. Otherwise, if we have too many people who have channels of communication, this can hinder the quality of communication, or this can cause confusion. So single channel of communication is very important, and this communication must be open and frank. Now, principle number 7, the cultural environment principle. Now, the culture within the environment is also important. Where the culture is positive, it means the team is motivated and the conditions within that environment are conducive to the execution of a series or this series of tasks and activities which are aimed at that common goal within the context of the project. So a positive cultural environment must always be existent, it must always be present to ensure that members are not distracted by needless squabbles, by needless arguments, by needless quarrels. Because when the environment is not positive, it means some valuable time may be wasted in trying to make sure that people do not argue or quarrel with each other. The disagreements are ironed out. So, by all means, in order to make sure that everyone remains on task and that the goals of the project are being worked towards by everyone, by every team, it is important that the cultural environment is positive. And then we have, secondly, that whose responsibility is it? It is the responsibility of management to ensure that there is the correct cultural environment in the context of the project. And when that environment is there, you know that members are going to remain focused, they're going to remain motivated. And then the last point under the cultural environment principle is that the conducive cultural environment enables the project delivery team to do the best, to be the best they can be. Now, what are the key roles in project management? You have the project board. Now, at the onset, I want to highlight the fact that these roles may have different labels in different publications, so it depends on which book you read. Okay, but for purposes of this discussion, we have a project board, which consists of the executive committee, the project sponsor, the senior users or user, the senior supplier or suppliers. Now, the executive committee has overall control of the whole project. It also provides overall leadership as a result. And then you have the project sponsor. The project sponsor owns the project. They are the creator of the project brief. They are the ones who are sponsoring, if you like, who are funding this project. And therefore, because of their vested interest, so much vested interest in this particular project, they have the final say because they are sponsoring it. And therefore, the project sponsor authorizes and makes final decisions insofar as the project is concerned. Then you have the senior users or the senior user. Now, the senior user is drawn from the group of users, those who are going to use the project, the product, sorry, those who are going to use the service. So these users taken from that group, why are they important? It's because they are the ones who are going to come in direct contact with the product, which is going to be a result of this particular project. They are the ones who are also going to be using, as the word suggests, the product. So their perspective, their view is very important, because without the service user, there's no need for the product you are making, because they are going to be quote unquote consuming that particular service or product. So their perspective is important, because they will be the ones making the decision whether or not to buy or to make use of the service or the product. And then last but not least, you have the senior supplier or senior suppliers. The senior supplier provides materials or resources needed for the project. These can either be internal or external. And one of the expectations is that the senior supplier or suppliers must understand the constraints. What are likely to be the issues insofar as the supplies of the materials? It could be raw materials or any materials that are needed in the undertaking, in the execution of the project. They have to be aware of the issues, right, of or surrounding the supply of materials that will be needed or that are necessary for the execution of the project. So the senior supplier is very important. If there are any changes or likely to be any delays in the supply of the materials that are needed for the project, these persons or this person needs to update, needs to tell the board what the issues are, so that a decision can be made. If any contingency plans need to be put in place, they will be put in place, but they cannot be put in place without the information or the know-how or without the role of the senior supplier. Now, project manager, as the word suggests, they manage the project. The project manager keeps the board updated on the project. Where are we up to? Are we on task? Are we on budget? Are all activities going on smoothly? Are they going on as expected? Are there any issues? The project manager has a role to play. If there are any risks, this project manager needs to have a record or log of these risks and other key monitoring elements, because without the record, it is difficult for the project manager to keep track of everything that is happening. Because remember, sometimes you have several teams that are working on different activities, but all of these are being done towards the same goal, towards the same end product. And because you have multiplicity of activities going on towards the same goal, it is important that a record is kept. And it is from this record, from this log, that the manager can analyze and say, oh, we have issues here. Let me update the board on this particular issue. They need to look out for this. They need to look out for that. The project manager also produces and monitors plans for the project. So you must have plans for whatever is happening, for the activities or series of activities that are occurring towards the common goal. It is the responsibility of the manager to make sure that the plans are there, and not only producing those plans, they must be monitored. Are people adhering to them? Are we on plan? Are we on task? What needs to be done? If certain aspects of the plan are proving to be difficult for teams to follow, the manager keeps an eye and say, okay, what do we need to do? Can we adjust? Can we adapt? What needs to be done? Monitoring and producing plans is important also, and that's a role of a project manager. And then you have the next role is providing direction to the project teams. Now, this you can see that from this range of roles for the project manager, or activities or responsibilities of the project manager, you can see that these are all connected, right? So providing direction is also in part based on what is happening. When you are monitoring the plans, you see, oh, this is where we are with the plans. The teams are working this well, or they need to adapt, or they need to correct certain things. The direction the project manager provides to the project delivery team is in part derived from the monitoring of plans, right? It is from the monitoring of plans that the manager may decide, I've realized that this is what is happening. In our plan here, we said we want to do this way, and on the ground, this is what is happening, and therefore the direction I'm giving is let's do it this way. Okay? Any minor corrections that need to be done, do them. And the manager also is looking at, are we working to the budget that has been set aside? Is there a likelihood that we may be over budget? Maybe there's been a sudden increase in materials that are required, which was not foreseen when we planned for this project. The project manager needs to keep an eye on the project budget. And then you have project team leaders. Now, project team leaders are not always necessary. It depends on the size of the project. For certain projects, you may not need them, but for large projects, they are needed. And what is their role? It is to make sure that the project manager, among other things, is kept updated in a timely manner. So if something is happening or something needs to be passed on to the project manager, the team leaders need to make sure this information is delivered expeditiously. It must be delivered on time, because if it is delivered late, it may be too late to do anything about it. So if you deliver it early, there's something that can be done about it, and the project managers can make decisions and provide direction. If the project manager needs to then update the board, as we said earlier on, they can do that, and decisions can be made quickly, because time is of the essence when it comes to project management. And another role they can play, the project team leaders, is that of standing in for the project manager should need arise. So who are these project team leaders? Now, these tend to be existing line managers or supervisors, so they're already in place, they're already in post. And when there's a project, they can act as project team leaders. Again, as I said, This depends on the size and scope and magnitude of the project. Now, project support. These tend to do the day-to-day administration tasks, record keeping, organizing meetings, minute taking, risk logs, and issuing them as well. And these again tend to be usually for large projects because there is need for record keeping. There is need to keep track of things that are happening within the project. So the project support may be needed where the project is very large. And when you have large projects, you know there are large numbers of people who are also involved within the project. And then you have our summary here. What we need to remember about the key roles. The first thing is roles may be assigned to more than one person. So you can have roles assigned to one person or to two people, depending on the scope of the role. Conversely, one person may have more than one role. The most important thing here is, can that person deliver? Can that person perform the roles, if there are more than one, effectively, efficiently, in a way that enables the team to work towards the goal or goals that have been set for the project? That is the most important thing. And another thing is, if one person is going to have more than one roles or even one role, does the person have the right skills level? Does the person have the right experience level? Because it is important that they are the appropriate person to be performing that role. If they are, if they can do it, and if it is feasible that they do it, and that it is not going to compromise the project in any way, then they can do it. Another point I want to highlight is that a project does not have to have all these roles. Again, as I have said, and I will reiterate it now, it depends on the nature, scope, and size of project. Therefore, the list is not exhaustive. You may have more roles in some projects, you may have less roles in other projects. Now, let's move on to the fourth thing we set out to address. What are the main project management techniques? The first one I'm going to talk about here, again, please note the use of the word main. It is deliberate. The main project management techniques we have, it means there could be more. In fact, there definitely are more techniques, and every time you have new techniques being devised. But in this presentation, the first one we're going to talk about is what is known as the PERT, or the PERT, which stands for the Program Evaluation and Review Technique. Now, this is used to analyze the tasks involved in completing a project. So analysis is important, and it must be an analysis not just of one task or of the global project. It's an analysis of the tasks involved in completing a project. It is interested in the time needed to complete each task of the project. How much time does this task require? How much time does the next task require? How much time does task C require? And when you've looked at the time each task takes, that will give you an idea of the overall time the project is going to take. So you have your set time for the overall project, and you want to ensure that the time for each task is consistent with the overall time the whole project is going to take. Otherwise, the project may end up being late, which may mean that there is going to be a rise in the costs incurred during the execution of the project. Now, the PERT is also concerned with the minimum time needed to complete a project. So when is the earliest possible this project can be completed by? It is also the focal point of the PERT. And then we have the critical path method, also known as the CPM. Now, this is used in conjunction with the PERT, the program evaluation and review technique, right? This is a computer program for scheduling project activities. It is used to identify critical activities that need fast tracking. So you may want to move certain activities faster than they are currently, or you've identified some activities which require extra attention, or maybe they require additional resources allocated to them. The CPM helps you do that, right? But certain activities, as you do the project, you realize, when we planned for this, we had allocated fewer resources than this activity actually needs. It is the purpose of the critical path method in conjunction with the program evaluation and review technique to ensure that any adjustments that need to be done are done in order to meet the overall goal of the project. And therefore, the CPM is used in a variety of projects. Now we have what is known as the PRINCE2, that's Prince version 2, and that stands for projects in controlled environments. Now, the primary focus of the PRINCE2 is products. It is interested in products, and also of importance to this particular technique is structure. Things must be structured. Activities must be structured. At the heart of successful project management is structure. There's one proposition the PRINCE2 technique puts forward. The PRINCE2 technique is adaptable to any project. And it also emphasizes the need to learn from experience. And the proposition here is, as you go along, you learn from experience. And whatever you're going through as you are carrying out or undertaking the project, you are learning how to do things, how they can be improved. So there's a constant review of what you're doing to inform what you do next and how you do it. You may also learn from experience from other projects previously, as long as there is learning from experience. PRINCE2 is emphasizing on learning from experience. And there also must be clear roles and responsibility. Remember point 2 there, structure. So clear roles and responsibilities is also a sign of a structured project. And there is also, in the context of PRINCE2, management by steps. Management is not just done overall, it's not haphazard. There must be method, step by step, a series of steps. Management must be done in steps. Now, let's move on to the fifth and last thing we set out to do. We wanted to know, what does the project management and decision-making process involve? Now, it is important to remember that there are 4 P's of project management. The first P is plan. Now, under planning, or under the plan, you have the plans for the project. So there may be a range of plans. For the plan for this team and activity, a plan for that team and activity, a plan for that team and activity. And then also, alongside the plan, or allied to the plan, you have the focus. What are your predictions? What is likely to happen, right? You forecast the cost. Yes, we are budgeting for this. And you also are trying to think, prices may rise. If they're going to rise, they may not rise by more than 2%. So we are putting down a budget of this much so that we are not under budget when we carry it out. or when we carry the project out. Plans and focus are very important. You may focus certain delays that may occur. Probably have heard that during the course of your project, there may be a strike in a sector which supplies a key component for your project. Then you build it in because you know if there is going to be a strike, that's what we are forecasting. So why not buy what we need to buy from that sector now so that we do not delay ourselves? Normally, we'd have bought it in week 4 or 5 of the project, but because there's going to be a strike in week 5, let's make sure we buy this by week 4, week 3. You have made a forecast and you have made some plans in accordance to your forecasts. Or there will be a shortage of this particular material or raw material. Then before we experience that shortage, let's buy it now. You're trying to forecast. You're trying to look ahead and preempt whatever may negatively impact on your project. And then you have the people. Key to the success or failure of a project, right? The success or failure of a project hinges on, among other things, the people doing it, right? Do they have the right skill set? Do they have the appropriate experience? Do they have the right motivation levels? All these are important because people who are doing the project must be motivated. They must have the experience. They must have the expertise. They must have the skills. So people are important. If they don't have these, you may find your project failing. And then fourth, power. Decision makers. Who is going to be making the decisions? You need there to be people who make decisions. There must be clear lines of authority. If you hit a snag, who will make the decision? Who is going to provide direction? This must be clear as well in project management. Now we have the 4 phases of project management, right? You have the initiation phase. That's when the idea is mooted, mooted. That's when the idea is born, the inception of an idea, right? That's at the beginning. And when you come up with an idea, it's not enough. You must have a plan for how it's going to be executed. How do you bring it to fruition? How do you make it real? How do you bring it to life? It is important that you have a plan. And when the plan has been done, plans, yes, they are wonderful, but you cannot just end at the planning stage. You need to carry it out. You need to execute, right? So when you execute, it means you're now putting to action the plan. Now, note we have 4 phases there, and you may have noticed we have 5 on the list. The fourth we have under the fourth, monitoring and control, is not a phase, okay? But it is important as well. When a plan is being executed, there's need to monitor and control. Remember when we talked about the role of the project manager, monitoring and controlling is important to make sure people are sticking to budget, people are sticking to the plan, and people are performing their roles as expected, and people are sticking to what they've been assigned to do. So there's no confusion, right? Monitoring and controlling is important. They're working to time. It is important, but it's not a phase. So in most of the literature, you'll find that it's called 4 phases, and then you have 5 in the list. And then on number 5, which is the actual 4th phase, is the completion and closing. There's no point to starting a project which you do not complete. So it is important that the project is completed, it's closed, it's finished. Remember when we defined project, it has a definite start and a definite end. It has to end, it has to be completed. Now let's recap the questions we set out to answer, okay? If by any chance you think, oh, I don't think I remember what the answer to that question is, of course, you can go back to the presentation and revise. But the questions we set out to answer are the following. Question 1, what is project management? And then question 2, what are the key principles of project management? Question 3, what are the key roles in project management? Number 4, what are the main project management techniques? And the last question we've just dealt with is, what does the project management and decision-making process involve? I also have a reading list, just 2 texts I think you will find useful. The first one was published by Louis J. in 2002, second edition. If you find a later edition, it's fine. You can also read it. But this particular one is quite interesting, called Fundamentals of Project Management. These are basics of project management. And then we also have the Project Management Institute 2013, A Guide to Project Management, to the Project Management Body of Knowledge, 5th edition. Now, the Project Management Institute have a wonderful website. I do recommend it. Please familiarize with it. You'll find a lot of useful information on their website. Otherwise, thank you very much for bearing with me. Look forward to being with you again in my next presentation. Have a great day or evening, wherever you are, what time zone you are in. It's Conti Gabi checking out. Bye.